Here's a stat that's going to sound like good news. A credit card company runs the numbers and discovers that if they lose 10% of their customers year over year, then the average lifespan of a customer is 10 years. They figured out that if we cut that defection rate in half to just 5%, then the average customer lifetime doubles to 20 years. Double the lifetime, double the revenue. Problem solved. That sounds, it sounds like it makes sense, but it doesn't. And Byron Sharp is going to tell you why reducing defection is not the answer, and what the answer to ensuring long-term sustainability and growth of your brand really is. So it's chapter 3, let's get into it. What you think you know. The conventional wisdom on churn goes something like this. Members leave, and that costs you money. So the goal is to keep them from leaving. Build loyalty, build community, build retention programs, create reasons to stay. And if you can reduce the number of people walking out the door, you can extend the average customer lifetime and therefore the average customer value. More lifetime value per member means a healthier business. Logically. And that logic sounds clean and it feels right. And for most gym owners, it is the primary lens through which they evaluate their marketing and their operations. Sharp's data says that the lens is always pointed in the wrong direction. What he says, that acquisition is the variable that really matters. Sharp does not argue that defection is irrelevant. He argues that defection is largely constant. In any given market, brands of similar size experience similar defection rates. And you are not going to dramatically outperform your category on retention. That variation on defection and retention is very narrow. But what is not narrow, and what varies enormously between the brands that grow and the brands that shrink, is their customer acquisition. And he states this as plainly as any researcher ever has. It turns out that the answer to the question is very simple. Growth is due to extraordinary acquisition. Contraction is due to dismal acquisition. Think about that. It's not extraordinary retention. It's not extraordinary loyalty programs. It's not extraordinary community building. It's extraordinary acquisition. Growth is due to extraordinary acquisition, customer acquisition. Contraction is the opposite, due to dismal customer acquisition. And that's the whole chapter in one sentence. He does bring up during this chapter this concept of double jeopardy. And we covered this back in chapter 2. It means that small brands have fewer buyers and less loyal buyers. Therefore, they have a smaller reach and they have less evangelists who they can rely on for their business. Chapter 3 extends that dynamic even further. And here's what it looks like in practice. I'll give you an example. A large gym loses 5% of its members this month. That might mean 15 people out of 300. Their acquisition engine brings in 20. They net positive. The business grows. The small gym loses 5% of its members in a month. Same percentage. And that might be 5 out of 100. And their acquisition for that month brought in 3. So they net negative and the business contracts. It's the same defection rate, 5%, completely different outcome. And that's because the small business has less traction, it has less momentum, and less buffer to observe the same percentage loss. And that's the double jeopardy applied to defection. You have fewer people to lose, so every loss hits harder. You have less acquisition power to replace them, so every shortfall compounds. But again, defection is relatively constant. So the answer is not to stop the losses. The answer is to outpace them. I remember an old adage when I was growing up, and maybe it's just a Texasism that some people would say, but it is, don't wait till you're thirsty to start building your well. And here's how that gets specific to CrossFit gym owners. The average CrossFit member life cycle is approximately 18 months. And that's not a failure of anybody's system. It's just the reality in CrossFit. People move, people get injured, people change priorities. Maybe they go to a different type of a sport. Life happens. And no loyalty program, no community event, no retention campaign changes that average in any substantial way. But what that 18-month number tells you is this, that every member that your gym is getting right now has a clock running. Some will make it 5 years, some will make it a week. It's an average of 18 months, and that clock begins ticking as soon as they join. Which means that your acquisition engine cannot be a campaign that you just run one time. So if you were to start a campaign today, you'd probably get a whole lot of people. It's July now, so you'd probably get a whole lot of people right at the turn of the year, which would be perfect. But then those people will probably be gone by the next July. So you need to start that engine and keep it running in order to gain more people, and ideally gain more people than the people who are leaving. You can't run it for just one period of time. It can't be a push that you make when the gym feels thin. It has to be continuous, something that is always on, something that is always replacing the members who are naturally cycling out. And that has to happen before you feel the gap. The gyms that panic when members leave are the ones whose acquisition went quiet 6 months ago. The gyms that never panic are the ones that are running a pipeline that is always bringing in more people than you're losing. And you don't need to stop the tide of people losing. Think of it that way. I'm in California, this will make perfect sense. The tide is going to drain out. And you don't need to stop the tide. You need to make sure that the tide coming in is larger than the tide going out. Now, in reading this book, I had a couple of my own thoughts, and I'm just going to share those with you because they're important. First of which is that the defection metric is not exactly precise. We use these examples of saying, hey, you got 5 people in, but then you lost 5 people and all of these different numbers. That defection metric is essentially how many people left out of your whole group of people. That doesn't tell you who left. And that's something that's important to know. Because if you have a gym and you have 100 committed people, 5 people come in and then 5 people leave, that means, and they're the same 5 people, that means there's something about your onboarding process that isn't working, or there's not a way of getting them plugged up into your community in a meaningful way in which they will stay. Conversely, if you bring in 5 new people and then your 5 original people leave, that can mean a number of things as well. It could mean that your gym culture has changed and you're starting to undo some of your loyalists. It also could mean that your loyalists are old and they need to go do something else. All of those factors are going to get missed in the churn and the defection percentage. You need to be able to know who's leaving and why, in addition to how many people are leaving. One metric, who and why, is a management metric, and the churn metric is a marketing metric. And we can only address this metric on your churn and your acquisition through marketing, but not through management. Second, I'm going to call this one triple Jeopardy, because Sharp doesn't identify the fullness of the effect of being a large brand. If you are a large brand, people are talking about you. People know you. People then have social proof of your brand. Some of the greatest advocates of any company are the people who have experienced your company, have a relationship with it, and then are now telling others about it. Word of mouth to this day is still the strongest form of marketing anybody could ever have. And here's the thing that you need to know, that if you are a small brand, a small business, a small gym, you don't have social proof. If you haven't been in the industry for a while, you don't have people advocating for you. And that works against you as you are trying to build your brand. So really, it's triple jeopardy in both the gaining and losing of your customers. So when you're gaining, big brands have more reach and they have more loyalists. So they have more evangelists and they can reach more people. But there are also more people who are aware of them, who are talking about them, that drives more people to them. And to Sharp's point, the biggest metric of success is how many people know you and are there for your mental availability. Conversely, if you're a small brand, you don't have as many loyalists. You don't have as many people that you're reaching, and people don't know you. So you lost in 3 ways if you are a smaller brand. The way to overcome that is to take that small brand and turn it into a big brand. And the way to do that is by extending your reach, getting more people, making sales so you have deeper market penetration. And the more market penetration you have, the bigger your brand will be, and the flywheel begins to turn, and then so that you may be able to maintain your business long term. Again, the flywheel is something that we talked about back in phase 1. Go back and watch those episodes. And lastly, this is something that I think happens often with gym owners, and I get it. Any type of business owner, I'm going to understand this one position. Sometimes there is so much to think about with your business that it is impossible to see out 6 months, a year, 2 years. And that is where you are going to fail. Because as we're discussing this, there's going to be a natural churn of your customers, regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of how good your customer base is. Especially as a gym, people may love you in your gym and they get hurt and don't come back. The churn, particularly in the CrossFit community, is something that we must talk about and something that you have to learn to anticipate. Now, if you are seeing the churn, it's very easy to get focused on today. But if you want to beat the churn, you have to be able to think about how many people you want coming into your gym 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. And if you can't elevate your perspective in order to see where you want to be, you will get crushed by living moment to moment. Because that churn is coming. We need to build a strategy, a plan, and implementable steps to ensure that you're getting good customer acquisitions in the future. We talked about elevating your perspective back in episode 6 of phase 2. That is one to actually go back and read. I think that, or go back and listen to. It's very important. So, to say that bluntly, you have to be able to think about where you want to be. And that's where we come in as Enoch Marketing. Shameless plug. Because we will help you see that acquisition you're going to need in 6 months and build you the roadmap so that you can hit it consistently over and over again. Now, we only work with people for 6 months, but we will give you the tools, the processes, we'll make sure you know everything to continue doing so off into perpetuity. So you only have to work with us for 6 months, and then after that you'll be able to run it yourself and you'll do just fine. But that's the deal. If you don't think about the future, then the future will have its way with you. Now, all that being said, you can do what you want with all of that. So, let's get towards the end of this by talking about measuring your churn as a primary health metric. You have to understand that measuring your churn or your defection rate is always going to be a lagging indicator. And by the time your churn rate goes up, the damage is already done. Measure the acquisition instead. How many new members came in this month? How many trials converted? How full is your pipeline? Those are leading indicators, and that's where your attention belongs. Second, build your social proof infrastructure now, not later. Don't wait till you're thirsty to build the well. Every testimonial, every Google review, every member transformation story is working for you passively while your paid ad campaign works for you actively. The gym who has 200 views and a packed Instagram is easier and cheaper to leverage to acquire members than the gym who's running the same ads with 12 reviews and a quiet social media presence. Build the two simultaneously. Third, think about 18-month out. You want to be thinking in 18-month cycles. Map your member acquisition against an 18-month replacement horizon. If you brought in 30 members this quarter, plan for the natural attrition of those 30 members beginning around month 12-ish. The gym that plans for churn in advance never scrambles to have to recover from it. Extraordinary acquisition is not a campaign. It's a posture. It is the decision to never stop bringing in new people, regardless of how full the gym feels today. So, growth, again, is due to extraordinary acquisition. Reach those people on the fringes, bring them in so you can get into the market more and establish yourself as a bigger brand. The bigger your brand is, the more you're going to be able to do. Contraction is due to dismal acquisition. Don't wait till the gym is empty to start reaching because you'll have 6 months to fix it. As Sharp said, and the data backs this, and your 18th month clock is already starting to run. Think about your acquisition. Next, we're going to get into the Pareto principle for chapter 4. Subscribe. If you like this, share it, send it everywhere, because this is actually breaking down some of the commonly held beliefs within the CrossFit community so that we can ensure that our gyms are resilient across time. I'm Colin Charles. This is Enoch Marketing. We will talk to you next time.